Jordan Peele's 2017 directorial debut, Get Out, follows Chris, a young black protagonist who faces very odd behavior when meeting his girlfriend Rose's white family. In Cherry's 2009 book Horror, she places horror films into subcategories. Get Out most prominently fits into the psychological horror group as it explores psychological states and psychoses. We come to realize that this is the Armitage family's disturbing intention. Hypnotizing African Americans, they transfer the consciousness of white people into their bodies. Experiencing this firsthand from his thought to be mother in law, Missy, Chris narrowly escapes the deceitful grasps of Rose and the Armitage's estate. Peele uses the horror genre to explore society's deep-rooted racial tensions in modern America. Unlike the stereotypical presentation of femininity in older Hollywood films, Peele subverts the victimized damsel in distress and final girl trope, specifically through the character of Rose. On a first viewing as audience members, we do not suspect anything of her. She is presented as Chris's witty, seemingly progressive girlfriend. However, upon rewatch, there are noticeable signs that her actions, especially in the deer and police scene, are not as simple and benevolent as we assume. Typical horror tropes signal male authoritative figures as a threat to female characters. However, Rose takes control in this situation, assertively diffusing the scenario with her white femininity in a way people of color would have been unable to. Calling out the cop for his implied racially motivated questioning, she utilizes her white privilege to act as a white savior on Chris's behalf as he remains compliant in the background, misleading viewers to be on her side as she seemingly sticks up for him. This makes the reveal later all the more shocking as we come to understand her adamance here stemmed from her determination to make sure that there was no trace of Chris when he becomes missing. David Greven, who wrote the article The Women of Get Out, Femininity, Race, and Betrayal in Contemporary Hollywood Cinema for Studies in Gender and Sexuality, summarizes this concept with, "It is not typical for a straight male lead in a movie to be rescued by a female character. Rose exceeds the limits of conventional female authority in a male-centered narrative." This gender subversion is a crucial early hint that Rose's white womanhood isn't all that it appears to be. This is also not the only time Hollywood films have presented a white savior. Though not a horror, La La Land's Sebastian can be considered by some to be a white savior of jazz. As the film goes on, Rose continues to subtly demonstrate her feminine authority over Chris, dominating him physically during intimacy and slowly gaslighting his second guesses about anything peculiar.
Like what?
Once the other side of her personality is revealed to us, her once adoring facade is sharply contradicted. Her hair is seen constantly slicked back in a ponytail, and her demeanor has flipped to a cold, harsh tone. We see this during the phone call with Rod and the cereal eating scene. Her psychotic mindset as she hunts for a new victim is presented very off-puttingly as she eats a single-colored cereal and drinks milk out of a black straw separately. This can be indicative of white supremacy, which is also seen in Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. This idea of white supremacy is further reinforced when she chases Chris off her lawn with a phallic rifle, referencing the
I don't
opening.
want to get chased off the lawn with a shotgun.
You're not going to.
America has long put white womanhood on a pedestal as the paragon of beauty, virtue, and purity to be protected at all costs. Get Out plays with this concept by reversing the narrative, portraying the white woman as the predator and the black man as the prey. Other Hollywood films, such as Jennifer's Body and Carrie, use female representations to play with gender dynamics through the similar output of the horror genre. Rose is not the only feminine presence that is deceitful and villainized in this film. Her mother Missy, an expected maternal figure associated with nurturing and politeness through the teacup, proves to be ill-judged, as she uses this to gain Chris's trust before dismissing him to the sunken place, where the intelligence and voice of the black audience are devalued and they are cast as a passive spectator. Detective Latoya also makes a mockery of Rod's theory for her male co-worker's enjoyment. Even Georgina acts in opposition to our protagonist when grabbing hold of the wheel during Chris's escape, contrasting Walter's actions that ultimately save him. Peele's decision to go with this ending in which Rose doesn't win and imprison Chris with her white female in distress acting in front of who we expected to be a white police officer was most definitely motivated by fear of the political moment. This film was originally intended to serve as a reminder that racism was still present despite the USA electing a black president. Once Donald Trump came to power before the film's release, a rise of white supremacist groups was noted. This cultural shift means the new ending would prove more fitting to legitimizing the fears of the black community whilst affirming their power with this hopeful conclusion. In all, Get Out plays on society's cultural attitudes, expectations, and fears towards femininity, whilst prioritizing race in these gender dynamics.